if you don't go networking to build those relationships and effectively make friends, are you going to get the thing that you were looking for in the first place? Hello everyone, welcome back to Adventures in Networking. Hope you're all doing well. We're here to chat about do we undervalue our business connections, aka do you need business friends? It's a good topic, this actually, Kelly. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
You look like you didn't know how to answer a question then.
No, I do know how to answer a question. I'm very good, thank you.
Excellent, good stuff. Well, look, we'd love to hear your business friendship stories. So if you're watching, drop a comment in the chat. Kelly, we've already got some comments, haven't we, from some of our friends and members who commented on your original post. So if you commented on that post, you may feature on that show. If you watch this and you didn't feature and you think, I want to be on the show, put a comment in the chat and we will try and showcase that and talk about it. So what inspired this? So I had a conversation recently with someone that said to me quite innocently, I don't need friends. I don't go networking to make business friends. I've got enough friends. I don't need friends, which is, it's a legitimate point. The inference, the conversation went on, and it was as much to do with the fact that, broadly, there's two things that we can get from networking, and we can classify one of them as kind of softer not softer skills, but softer outcomes. So friendship, moral support, a friendly ear. It starts to blur the lines when you get into what if that person gives me some friendly, useful advice that I don't have to pay for because they've shared some of their business expertise. We're starting to creep into something a bit more tangible that we would kind of recognize as a, business ROI. But broadly, this conversation was about, I don't need the soft side of networking. I just want business. I just want referrals. And I completely understand that. But that gets us thinking, doesn't it, Kelly, that if you don't go networking to build those relationships and effectively make friends, are you going to get the thing that you were looking for in the first place? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as you were saying that, it actually dawned on me that that probably reflects in certain people's interactions and one-to-ones that they're having. Because if you're not there to be friends, friendly is another thing. I'll put that over that side. If you're not there to be friends, you're probably really not going to want to have that relational conversation. So you're probably going to come across a little bit more salesy, which if you are somebody that likes relational networking, you're going to find that person a little bit pushy. When maybe they aren't, but they're just there for what they deem to be the result that's better for them. Oh gosh, I mean, I wouldn't be sat here now with you, James, if it wasn't for me wanting to make friends in networks. So, yeah, we went for lunch, we got married in the end. Do you know what I mean? That whole process of relation build, we kind of pushed the boundaries on that one, didn't we? But if you're spending time with people, my question would be is how are they not going to become your friends if you're spending time with people in that situation?
Yeah, and it's possibly a different kind of friendship, isn't it? I think one of the things that became very clear to me once I set up a business is that the friends that I had pre being a business owner changed quite quickly because you can no longer understand the other's perspective. So people that are employed think self-employed people take endless tea breaks, work whenever they feel like it, and it's a doddle. And if you're self-employed, you look at your employed friends and go, you get paid to go on holiday, you can take sick days and you still get paid. So we end up kind of, I'm being stereotypical, but I do think you kind of go in different directions and the conversations you have become quite different. So Kelly, in the comments, is that Mark who said about
Nelson.
inspiration?
Yes, it is.
I will share that. Unfortunately, the feed's not working. So is that Mark?
That is Mark Nielsen, yeah. Wonderful Mark Nielsen.
And
So
who's this person? Ended up with a
that's
life
Mark
path.
again. Started off
Oh,
networking.
that is
and got
Mark
the life path.
again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that met through networking. We're going to mention one of them a little bit later, Lindsay.
But think about that. If there's a lot of people that have met at networking, and we're certainly speaking to a lot of people that met at networking, we're building relationships. We are naturally building friendships. We're naturally going from that business to personal life and then some. You know, I would suggest, we've talked about dating before, haven't we, in the networking space, in terms of nurturing relationships, friendships, and treating them, you know, you wouldn't ask to get married on the first date. We joke about that, don't we? It's the same thing. We're blurring the lines because business is that way now. And I'll go back to that point. If you're going networking and you don't want friends, you will end up telling me that it doesn't work for you because you just won't come across in the right way.
Let's quantify that a little bit more, because I think it's really important to say you don't have to end up best friends with everyone you meet at networking. Like that is absolutely unrealistic and unnecessary. And you don't even have to become, I would argue, particularly close friends. I think, you know, we can have friends that we go down the pub with and we talk about different topics with, as opposed to the friends that we have through business. But I think what we're getting at is this idea that if you take that concept too far, look, I'm not here for the friendship, and you kind of put a barrier up, you're putting a guard up, effectively if you play that forward, look, I'm just here for the business, thanks very much, don't come too far into my space. Think about that. What you're effectively doing is, look, I'm not that bothered about you. I don't really want to build a relationship with you. I want you to help me though. I want you to give me referrals. And this is the problem, isn't it? If you go in with that transactional mindset, I'm only here for the business, Kelly, I don't think networking works if you just go in looking for sales.
I think you have to find a network that specifically markets itself as that. Probably paid for referral networks will work in that space because there's a very prominent reason for being there. You want to get paid for giving a referral. Don't really need friends in order to do that because a pound signed at the end of it, and that's probably where that would work for you. Bernie said in the chat box here, for people to put work your way, they need to know, like, and trust you. Your personal friends know, like, and trust you. That's when you get to know your customers, clients well, they become friends, not just business connections. So it's like a cycle, isn't it? It is that trust piece. It is that getting to know someone. We talk about giving credit, gaining credit, don't we? And that whole circle. I think I've actually given introductions to people that I haven't liked before. I don't believe you have to like someone to be nice to them and to give them something that they're asking for. Little asterisk there. I've done that in instances. Just I can count on one hand. I don't make a point of not liking people, but I can count on one hand people probably in the last 12 months that I've given something to, despite me not really liking them very much. And the reason for that was the other person on the other end of it, who I do like and I trust and I know will benefit from that connection or that referral, will gain from it. So therefore, I'm sort of almost bypassing this person here, aren't I? And I'm looking out for that person that I do like over there.
So yeah, I think you've said this before, that you challenge, and it's the BNI expression, isn't it? Which is a good one, know, like, and trust. But is there an element within there that the like is not as important as the know and trust? I've got to know who you are, what you're about. I've got to trust that you're good at what you do, and therefore I'll make the connection. I tell you where it breaks down. Because you as a networking giver, and I'm talking to you, Kelly, you're a very giving person. You lead with giving at networking, so you don't necessarily need to like that person. If they don't acknowledge when you've given them that connection or that help, or they never try to help you in return ever, you're not going to do it again.
No, give everyone the benefit of the doubt, you know, and be a good person. But there's enough people out there that you don't need to give all of that effort to to people if they're not reciprocating it, are they? And what we're talking about here is friendships. Friendships are not one way, they're reciprocal. So I would argue, again, back to my original point, if you're going networking and you don't want to make friends, I don't know why you'd go networking. It's going to happen naturally.
The lovely Laura's put this comment. I want to know what you might need to qualify this with a follow-up comment, Laura, where you're saying I wasn't networking properly. I'd love to know what you mean by that if you want to put a secondary comment, because we did this. I did this. I think you did it, Kelly. I mean, you've said before, you didn't go networking initially to make friends. You're exactly the same. I didn't. I went because I needed to get business. But what you realize, like you say, are you going networking prospecting? I'm just going to meet people. You are all potential buyers of mine or potential referrers. I'm just going to talk to you, and hopefully I'm going to convert some of that activity into a sales opportunity. That for me is prospecting. That is not networking. Networking is building the relationship first. And if that relationship starts to look like friendship, I'd argue that what is a relationship without a level of friendship? What does friendship mean? It means give and take, doesn't it? It means we're there for each other. We've all had the friend who you realize one day they're not there for me. They're just there to take. It's exactly the same with networking, isn't it?
The business and networking landscape has changed, hasn't it, since COVID? And we've been talking about this a lot with people this last couple of weeks. It's almost like we've been waiting for something to happen. Just waiting to get Christmas over with, just waiting for the election to happen, just waiting for it's the next thing all the time. But I do feel like this year people have gone, well, listen, things aren't changing. Got to start putting in roots now and forging a path forward as what life is like now in the business and networking landscape. And that really reflects on the behavior that you bring to those spaces, doesn't it? If you're a business owner that goes networking when you're desperate for business, you will probably try and bypass the relationship build piece, because you will need to create that business to support your family, pay your bills and your mortgage. We all have to do that. But if you're somebody that comes into networking and sees the softer stuff as a huge benefit and has the luxury of time to build those relationships to then get referrals and pound sign ROIs, you're going to have a much nicer time and you will be more successful at it, because people will see that you relax in that space and you're open to having conversations, connections to build to get to that space. We're all small fish in a big pond, right? Yeah. And I would argue that if you're in an industry that is more abstract and don't see many of those people at networking, you probably don't have to be a very nice person, because people need to buy stuff because they don't see many of you. But if you're a web designer, a marketer, if you're in one of those industries where you know, IFAs, you see lots of people at networking, you've got to stand out and you've got to make people feel special.
Definitely. We're going to come on to the other benefits that you get from your networking and business friends. We're going to come on to that in a bit, but I do think we need to really explore this a little bit further around this idea that if I don't really care about people, why would I expect them to be able to help me?
Yeah.
Well,
which
I'm going to read out
tie into something that Mark says, which we'll come back to in a minute, but read out Tim's thing first.
Well, Tim Brock, good friend of ours, he said, this was on a comment on your previous post about this show. It's worth noting that it's not just navigating the business world together, but also as the bonds grow stronger, our personal worlds as the two are intrinsically linked. I think that's a real, this does kind of foreshadow what I'm going to talk about when I talk about the other benefits of building, of the value of business friends. I've never met anyone that knows fully formed exactly how to run a business. Like, you know, you may have grown up in a family, you know, your dad might be Richard Branson and you've got a big head start on what it takes to build a business, but that isn't most of us. Like, such a big part of business is learning from other people. So I think if you go into networking with this attitude of, I know my product, I know what I'm selling, I don't want to build any business friends, I think what you're also saying is, I don't value any of the experience of anyone else in this network. Like, I just find that quite sort of aloof and arrogant in an unhelpful way. Do you know what I mean? Like, if your business is working perfectly, I mean, you're probably not going to a networking group anyway at that point, are you? But most people I know, us included, there's infinite things to learn about business. And like Tim's saying, as naturally as we learn from each other, those bonds grow stronger, don't they?
They do. And, you know, business and personal life doesn't balance. Never will. Stop trying to get it to balance, because it won't. It's always going to do this. If it gets stuck one way or the other, then that's when you need to be worried. But they do bleed into each other. So to have people that, if I'm on a meeting, you know, I've got loads of people that if I'm in a room with them, they lighten up the room. You know, they make me happy. They make me smile because they're there. This is Mark again, and this was a point that I was going to come on to. Mark saying he would still struggle to introduce someone to his contacts if he didn't like them. And you're right, Mark, you do give away part of your reputation. But for me, and it does normally happen in that space that I've just explained, when you meet somebody that's unusual in their space and you don't come across those people, those experts that often, I can't even think of one industry type, but I can think of somebody, and I won't say any names, a lawyer's coach, like specific training for lawyers, just goes into law firms, trains them. Right? I don't come across those at networking very often, okay? But I know a lot of lawyers, and I know a lot of lawyers that are open to having that training. If that coach turns up on time, sends apologies if they can't make it to a meeting, is incredibly professional in every way, but there's just something about them I'm not quite liking, I'd still feel happy to give that introduction, not referral. I would caveat that with, you know me really well, you know the people I get on with, and this is probably somebody that I wouldn't necessarily hold too close to me, but they come across professionally. I've known them for a long time. They have got testimonials and stats to prove that what you're looking for is something you really need. So have an initial conversation with them. I'm absolutely fine doing that. But I do get Mark's point. Yeah. And again, Laura's point here, if you know a good electrician and you know they've done a really good job for you, you will recommend them to a potential client. You might not like them. You don't need to like the electrician at the end of the day. You just need them to fix the thing that they're fixing and be professional, do all the things that they need to do, and then refer them on.
The thing is, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because if I know two electricians, and I'm going to assume they know how to do electrician stuff, like
technical, yeah.
You know, they've got the licenses, they've done the training, they can do electrical work. So if I know two people, which one am I going to refer? Because I'm assuming a level of confidence. I'm going to refer the one that I like, aren't I? That is just human nature, and we're never going to avoid that. That's the difference between finding someone in a Google search and getting a referral or a recommendation through networking. And I think it's important to know the difference. So let's just wrap this bit up. So I think I just really wanted to make that point because I found it fascinating that if you dig a little bit deeper, if you think that the friendship / relationship side of networking is soft and maybe even superfluous to your goals, it's ironically an intrinsic element of getting results from networking. I suspect if you have that attitude, I think you've kind of said this, Kelly, if you go into networking going, well, I don't want any friends, you're probably not going to get any business.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's...
And you can't teach that bit either, just to end on that point. You can teach all the processes and the what to say and the how to make it sound good. Can't teach somebody to be a nice person. That's the bit that has to come naturally.
Well, I don't agree. Does it have to, do they have to be a nice person, or do they just need to be someone who's interested and endeavours to help and cares about other people?
Yeah,
you don't
definitely.
You can be a fairly acerbic person but still, you know, exhibit those traits, can't you? So okay, let's read out a couple more quotes because we've got some nice stuff. Jude Wharton, Ready Steady Websites for all your websiting needs. That is not their strapline, by the way. I'm sorry. And Chris, sorry. But she made a really good point about making friends through business, and the typical route, I believe, for a lot of people, because of her background, she went into the networking space and she had very clear boundaries. Well, this is a business relationship, this is a friend relationships. So she didn't approach it in the same way. And the key word here, she said, once I dropped my guard, I was glad because I built some lovely relationships and friendships as a result.
Yeah.
It's what we talked about earlier, isn't it? Putting down your guard. Who's making this assertion?
So it's Mark. It is Mark. Again,
I'm running out of time, Mark.
I'd class Mark as a friend. Never met him. He lives in Scotland. We live in the south of England. And we have a laugh. Doesn't that make business more fun when you've got people like that in your world? Thank you, Mark. You always make me smile. Going back to Jude's point, it is a really good one, which is why we picked it out, because I think if you come from that corporate space, I can always remember, shouldn't talk about my ex-husband here, should I? But my ex-husband, when I started networking, he was a director in the corporate space. He just couldn't understand what networking was all about, right? Really bubbly, friendly, lovely person, knew everyone, but went and subbed for me at BNI once, scared him to death. I mean, Andy, hated it. Because I think it can feel cult-like to some people. Lots of people that don't like networking will call it cult-like, and it isn't. It's just that we have a different mindset, don't we, as business owners and entrepreneurs, because we have to do so many things and wear so many hats. When you're in the corporate space and you network, you do it in a very different way, and you're probably not going out there looking for friends, because you are looking for transactions in the corporate space. So I think if you've come from the corporate world, as Jude sort of alluding to transition into that does take a bit of time, and to let your guard down will take time to do that, because it's not normal, and it can be quite shocking when people do it to you and you're not used to doing it yourself. But you will find very quickly that by letting your guard down, somebody go, oh gosh, yeah, and then they'll follow suit. So that's where those friendship pieces come out, don't they? Look, Mark said he loves you now. Not lovely.
This is a lovely little shout out from Louise for Bernie.
Well deserved.
Bernie with the bees. Yeah, it's a really good point, isn't it? I was going to make a point about something you just said. I was a bit shocked and stunned that you brought up your ex-husband. I mean, he might be watching. Perhaps he watches your stuff. Hi, Andy. Jessica Shales, she's put all of the new friends I've made in the past 7 years, and she's put all in capital letters. That's the way I would write it, actually, for an emphasis. All the new friends I've met in the past 7 years have been via business in some ways. Some of the lovely benefits is we can slip in between personal and work conversations seamlessly, and I don't feel guilty for talking shop, as they are often thinking about their businesses too. I love that.
Yeah.
And I bet, and again, in those, perhaps this is the point I was going to make earlier when you talked about the slightly falsified, I mean, particularly BNI is great in many respects, but the bit that puts people off is the formality, the brand into itself, the kind of, you have to do this, and it's a bit jarring for people. I think when you can get into conversations where you're yourself rather than this kind of business persona version of yourself, I think that's where you often unlock a lot of the value. Because there's always a bit, isn't there, Kelly, when depending on the people's level of familiarity with networking, where it's a little bit like, right, I'll say my bit, you say yours. And I think we've just got very good at kind of easing into can we just have a conversation and not worry about objectives, and let's just have a conversation. And I think that's what Jess is talking about there.
Definitely. There's a few examples that spring to mind for me. We had a business partner before, didn't we? So all three of us were self-employed, but her husband was employed, never been in the networking world, didn't know any of the people we were talking about. So when we got together as a four, that was really hard for him because he sort of felt like he was over there, but also really hard for us because we were really mindful of not making him feel awkward, because this was downtime, personal time. But actually, as a three, that conversation probably would have flowed much more naturally if we weren't trying to be so considerate to the fourth person in that conversation. And that does happen quite a lot, I think. I think we've met some really amazing couple friends, haven't we? And a bit like Mark is saying about him and Megan, like they get the the world we live in. They understand networking. They understand what it is to run a business. It's really hard if one of the people in that space isn't. And I think that probably goes back to your family as well, doesn't it? Like you said at the beginning, your family think that because you work for yourself, you just sat there and twiddling your thumbs, and if they need you, you're there. Same thing.
Your needs are different. And this was the point I was going to make about the Andy going into the B&I world and Jude coming out of the corporate space. This is the reason, by the way, that those people that you might want to sell to don't go networking, because they don't need to. They have got, typically within a business structure of working for someone else, you have a job role and objectives. Yes, you may have a business development role. The problem is, if you meet people that have a business development role for big company X, business development people typically don't have the buying power to help you be able to sell into their company. So they find the reciprocal part of networking really difficult.
Yeah.
And they don't need to go networking because they don't need some of the other things that we're going to go on to next. Therefore, they don't go networking. Therefore, the way to reach those people is through the people that do go networking. And this is why it's important to look beyond, can that person stood in front of me help me now?
Yeah.
It's often the people that they know that can open those doors, isn't it, Kelly?
Yeah, you explained that really well. If only we were recording this so we could remember what you said later, that would be fantastic. No, definitely. That everybody wants that bigger client. Everybody wants that bigger connection. That person that typically doesn't go networking, as you say, or they are few and far between. And they'll look at a sheet, they'll gauge who probably can get them closest to that space, and they'll probably make a beeline for them. What they forget is the wives, husbands, brothers, sisters, daughters, aunties in the room who know that person that's not in the room are the ones that you need to be making connections and friendships with. Because ultimately, when you've built that friendship and that trust, guess what? They're probably going to be really likely to pass you that person's contact details if there's a good reason for you to have a conversation with them. Yeah.
That goes back to the, my best friend is the exact person that you would love to sell to. So you would like me to connect you with that best friend, but you don't want to be my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the point, isn't it? That the friendship, take the word, if friendship's too cloying for you, just take the word out, friendship, and call it relationship. But again, relationships are what's the difference between a relationship and a connection? Well, a connection is go on LinkedIn and jam the connect button. Well done. You've now got hundreds of connections that don't care about you, who know who you are. I'd rather have 10 people that I had a relationship with that might try and help me if I ask for help. I think that's the way to approach that, isn't it?
Definitely.
Have a look at the comments. I'm just going to read out Lindsay's comment from your original post. I didn't start networking all those years ago to find friends, but I did, and a husband. That's quite a coup, isn't it?
We can only champion that one, can't we?
We're fans.
We are big fans of that.
Kate Chasty, didn't she meet
I think she might have done. Yeah, I think she might have done.
Did anyone else watching meet their spouse or best friend? I mean, I'd love to know that as well. If you've got a good friend.
Definitely.
We'd love to have that. Anything in the comments there that
Bernie's saying about there's a number in your financials headed goodwill. It puts a financial figure for the value of your connections, customers and clients. However, there's an emotional and relationship value too, which in his opinion is far more valuable. And I would agree with you, Bernie. And I absolutely echo Louise's words. Bernie is one of those people that is so supportive, absolute friend, is there for you, thinking about you. And has your back. And again, why wouldn't you want to be surrounded by people like that and have friends like that? So yeah, that is a really good point, Bernie. It's the goodwill in those spaces as well, isn't it?
It's one of them things that feels like an intangible. Oh, well, that's not direct ROI. And I think it's quite hard to understand if you haven't built a network of people that help you, that refer you, and that you see that kind of endless tap of opportunities, doors that it opens. Without that, it does feel abstract, doesn't it? It's only if you can track it, you can track where your clients came from. Good exercise, by the way. I've probably said this before on the show, but write down your 5 best clients and try and remember where they came from. It's typically always 1 or 2 people that have opened doors that got you to the next stage of your business. And I bet if I asked you before you met that person, you might not have realized or have thought that they were the people that would open those doors for you. That's why you have to just get to know people at networking in a good, as Brian Hilliard would say, good faith effort. Just treat everyone well, treat them with respect, have conversations, don't sell at them. That's when the doors will start to open for you. So there's too many B's in the chat.
It's good, isn't it? B's and hearts. I'll look after the chat, don't worry.
Fine. Right. I've mentioned this earlier. Let's kind of wind down with this, but so let's just assume you have got enough friends and you don't need the moral support of people that you meet at networking, because that's valid. Not everyone does. Why do you need business friends? I've got a little short list here just to help us out. But Kelly, why do you need business friends? I know we've talked about that a lot, but are there any? We've mostly talked about it opens doors toward sales.
Yeah, definitely.
What else?
We talk about this a lot, don't we? So it's a chance to learn, massive chance to learn, and people hugely undervalue the opportunity that gives them in a network. So learn about the supply and demand for your products and services. I almost think everybody should network for 6 months before they build their products and services, because how do they know what the people they're going to go out and sell it to want until they've actually asked them? We've actually had a couple of members do that in the past, and we've got one doing it now. Doesn't have anything, is building a business, kind of knows what area they want to be in. One example was Siobhan Fox, wasn't it? Marketing. Just network for 6 months and ask people the question. I'm going to provide marketing services. What would you like to see when I launch them? Guess who was rushed off their feet when they launched their products and services and knew what kind of prices to charge as a result? So definitely that learning about supply and demand. And then obviously on the other side, getting feedback on your products and services. You know, if you're launching something new, why wouldn't you want to beta test it on some of your connections that you've met at networking who will value having that as an added extra if you're giving it to them for free or at a low cost, in order to gain some valuable feedback from people that you trust and that you see all the time? Again, that's a real missed opportunity. I think we'll launch something and we're so intent on selling it, we don't think about getting anybody in to actually give us some feedback on what it actually looks like.
We've been talking about this month only, haven't we, via Jodie Newman's Only Talks, like this idea of, well, I've built it and I've posted it and people didn't come flocking, and we get really downhearted about that. And like you say, you can't just sit at your computer and go, oh, I don't believe, someone might want to prove me wrong. Or I know exactly what the market needs, and I know the exact terminology that's going to emotionally connect with those people, and I'm going to put it out there once, and I'm going to sell 1 million units. Like that, I think we kind of intuitively know that won't work.
Yeah.
Yet that's what I've done it before. We built, do you remember, Kelly, how to build a website course? And we spent that Easter, we gave up the whole Easter weekend. It was lovely and sunny. I don't think we're ever going to get that sun again, but we built that course and we did just that, didn't we? We were like, we put it out there and we sold a couple, and then we didn't really push it after that. And then we were like, oh, well, why did we bother doing that? Well,
yeah, I mean, naive in some respects. I think we did exactly what Jodie's talking about. Chucked it out there once or twice and then got disheartened because nobody actually looked at it. You've got to remember that content, that stuff that you've created, maybe just needs a reskin, or like a different marketing message, a different landing page, a different thumbnail, whatever it is. Just, you are the expert in your field. You've obviously got a lot of knowledge and a lot of stuff that you can give people. You've just got to work out what it is they need to hear in order to buy it. So yeah, it's the consistency again, isn't it? And again, in networking, it's consistency. You can't just jump into a meeting once and expect everybody to buy stuff from you. Equally, you wouldn't put a course out once and expect 1,000 people to book onto it in 32 minutes. It's not going to work, is it? It's not going to happen that way.
No.
But if you're not prepared to put the effort in, again, back to the beginning, same with friendships, you won't reap the rewards.
I think the opportunity to just learn about business. I mean, I've written, having a finger on the pulse. I think that's really important. We're all most of us are selling to a B2B audience. So what better way to ascertain the feel of the market, what challenges have people had, than going networking and kind of hearing it live? You can get a decent snapshot, I think, if you intentionally look on social media. I don't think people do that enough. I don't think they use the social media to think, let's work out what's going on in the world and what challenges people are having. But you can also do that probably more obviously at networking if you're going in that frame of mind, by the way. And if you've built those relationships with people, this is why I've written learn about business. I mean, the amount of times, Kelly, that we didn't have to pay for something because we'd earned some credit with someone and they were willing to say, of course, I'll give you half an hour of my professional expertise. I'll give you an hour. You can do trade swaps. You can access so much knowledge and support at networking. And when I say support, I don't mean moral support. I mean actual, support that would cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about social media as well, didn't you? But that is a real key thing. I see it on LinkedIn, Instagram. Don't go on Facebook very often, but you see little pockets of only members supporting each other on their posts, their social media, because again, you spend all this time crafting something, you put it out there and you get really demoralized because 2 people thumbs up. I'm really proud that people start to, it's not just in Only, I'm sure it happens in every network, but you get your little tribe, don't you, that see your stuff and then will put themselves out of their way to comment on your stuff. And guess what happens? Happens in return, doesn't it? Because you put yourself out, they'll do it for you. So that's a real easy win, isn't it?
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought about it that way round. That, okay, so you don't want business friends, but you want people to like and support your social media. But who do you think's going to like and support your business posts? I mean, let's face it, we're not in the consumer entertainment space, are we?
No.
People are not going to like and consume content because it's riveting or entertaining. They're going to support it because, mostly because they know you and they champion you and want to support you, rather than, wow, you've taught me something incredible, or do you see what I mean? And that's another one of those examples of you do need friends, don't you? Even if you think you don't.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Wow. All right, and we'll leave it there then, Kelly, don't you?
I think that's a good place to end it, isn't it? Thank you, everyone, for commenting. There's loads of lovely names there. Mark's talking about Jordan Reed. He's got his own Cilla Black. Sounds like Jordan was responsible for introducing Megan to Mark. So that's a nice story to end on as well, isn't it?
That is a very nice story.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, look, we'd love to hear if you watch this on replay and you've got any stories or thoughts, we'd love you to get in touch. Come along to Only if you've not been along. Come and make some business friends. Why wouldn't you want to meet these people? So, well, thank you for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next month.
Take care, everyone.